Hey guys. Okay, so I'm starting indoors today because we had a special request that you meet some of the animals who live here in the COVID kingdom with Nora and me. So I'm going to bring in Nora as a special guest here. She has,
Hi.
hi,
This is my bunny
named Cow.
named Cow. It's kind of crazy.
Cow is a little crazy. I don't know if you can tell
You can
how
take it.
crazy he is. Okay, yeah, no reason to
And then
freak
this
out.
is my rat.
And then Cow's buddy, Rat. What do we call this bunny?
Radish.
Radish.
Or
oh
Socrates. Dad wants me to rename it.
yeah. Yeah, they're not. Yeah.
I'll put it back in my pocket.
This bunny's heartbeat is beating so fast,
It
you
doesn't
guys.
like you.
He doesn't like me, probably. You guys, bunnies poop everywhere. That's what we know.
Doesn't.
All right, so put those two animals back, and then she's going to come out with the most deadliest animal in our house. And then introducing Tuna, who will not be on camera long because he is part bobcat. Look, his claws are out. He's not declawed. There he is. Okay. He's so mean. You guys look at his face.
Okay.
Tuna, smile at the camera. Yeah, that's how he normally looks. And he is scratching me right now. Okay, Nora. There you go. That's fun pet there for you. So those are three of the four. Those are the three most poorly behaved animals that we have. And I'll get Finn to join us outside for Hoot. Actually, we are going to read inside. I was going to bring Finn outside. He is in the room with me right now, laying on the floor being lazy. And maybe we'll see if he can come over here a little bit later. Anyway, it's so loud outside. I didn't want to read out there with all of those distractions. Sometimes that's what you have to do as a reader, right? Is find a quiet spot where you're not going to get off track. But you'll probably still hear some construction noise outside my window because there's a bunch by my house. Today I'm going to read a little bit of a longer chunk in Hoot. I know that you guys had a lot of reading to do on your own yesterday, so I'll read a little bit more today for that reason, but also because it's such a fun chapter that I just want to read a little bit extra. So we are going to get started with chapter 4, I believe, is where we had left off. Roy's mother made him stay home all weekend to make sure there was no delayed reaction to the golf ball bonking. Though his head felt fine, he didn't sleep well either Saturday night or Sunday night. On the way to school Monday morning, his mother asked what was bothering him. Roy said it was nothing, which wasn't true. He was worried about what would happen when Dana Matherson caught up with him. You guys, when somebody is mean to you at school, it just makes you so just sick. I hate that feeling that you know you've got to go and you're just so worried about what's going to happen. Some of you guys have felt like that before. Yeah, nobody should have to feel like that going to school, ever. Anyway, but I connect with that. I definitely, when I was in school, I had somebody for 1 year in middle school who was just not very nice to me, and I was so worried about it every day coming to school. Ugh. Yeah, it just sticks with you. It's not nice. It's one of the big reasons why we have to go out of our way to be kind to each other. You don't want to make anybody feel like that. Anyway, but Dana was nowhere to be seen at Trace Middle. Called in sick, Garrett reported. He claimed to have inside information, owing his mother's high-ranking position as a guidance counselor. Dude, what'd you do to that poor guy? I heard there was guts all over the bus. That's not true. I heard you pounded him so hard, his nose got knocked up to his forehead. I heard he'll need plastic surgery to put it back where it belongs. Roy rolled his eyes. Yeah, right. Garrett made a fart noise through his teeth. That's also not a word that I typically use, but since the author used it. Garrett, he's a barrel of laughs, isn't he? Hey, everybody in school is talking about this, talking about you, Everhart. Great. They were standing in the hall after homeroom, waiting for the first period bell. Garrett said, Well, now they think you're a tough guy. Who does? Why? Roy didn't want to be thought of as a tough guy. He didn't particularly want to be thought of as all. He just wanted to blend in quietly and not be noticed, like a bug on a riverbank. They think you're tough, Garrett went on. Nobody's ever slugged a Matherson before. Apparently, Dana had 3 older brothers, none of whom was remembered fondly at Trace Middle. What'd you put in your apology letter? Dear Dana, I'm sorry I thumped you. Please don't break every bone in my body. Leave me one good arm so at least I can feed myself. You're so funny, Roy said dryly. The truth was, Garrett was pretty funny. What do you think the grill is going to do next time he sees you? He asked Roy. He said to Roy, sorry. If I was you, I'd start thinking about plastic surgery myself so that Dana wouldn't recognize me. Seriously, man. Hey, Garrett, I need a favor. What, a place to hide? Try the South Pole. The bell rang and streams of students filled the hall. Roy pulled Garrett aside. No, listen, there's a tall girl with curly blonde hair. She wears red glasses. Garrett looked alarmed. Don't tell me. Tell you what? You got the hots for Beatrice Leap? That's her name? Roy figured it had been at least 100 years since anyone named their daughter Beatrice. No wonder she was such a sorehead. What do you know about her? He asked Garrett. I know enough to stay out of her way. She's a major soccer jock, Garrett said, with a major attitude. I can't believe you got the hots for her. I don't even know her, Roy protested. She's hacked off at me for some crazy reason. I'm just trying to figure out why. Garrett groaned. First Dana Matherson, now Beatrice the Bear? You got a death wish text? No, tell me about her. What's her story? Not now. We're going to be late for class. Come on, Roy said. Please? Garrett stepped closer, checking nervously over his shoulder. Here's all you need to know about Beatrice Leap, he said in a whisper. Last year, one of the star linebackers for Graham High snuck up behind her and slapped her on the bottom. This was at the Big Cypress Mall, broad daylight. Beatrice chased the guy down and heaved him into the fountain, broke his collarbone in 3 places, out for the season. No way, Roy said. Yeah, maybe you ought to think about Catholic school. Roy gave a hollow laugh. Too bad we're Methodists. Then convert, dude, Garrett said, seriously. Obviously, Beatrice is somebody you don't want to mess around with. Garrett doesn't know a whole ton about her backstory, but we did learn that whole story about her throwing the guy in the fountain, which really sounds like he kind of had it coming. Just saying. But three places broke his collarbone. A broken collarbone really hurts. So she is super strong, super tough, doesn't mess around. And the question is, why is she so mad at Roy? Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get that answer just yet, because it looks like our next section we're bouncing back to Officer Delinko at the Pancake House. Let's keep reading. Officer David Delinko looked forward to getting up early to scout the construction site. It was a welcome break from his daily routine, which offered few opportunities for real surveillance. Look at that word, surveillance. To surveil means to watch, and so he's doing surveillance work. He's keeping his eye out. He's watching, looking for a crime. Usually that kind of work, that was left up to the detectives. Although Officer Delinko liked the town of Coconut Cove, he had become bored with his job, which mostly involved traffic enforcement. He had joined the police force because he wanted to solve crimes and arrest criminals. Yet, except for the occasional drunk driver, Officer Delinko rarely got to lock up anybody. The handcuffs clipped to his belt were as shiny and unscratched as the day he joined the force, almost 2 years earlier. Vandalism and trespassing weren't big-time crimes, but Officer Delinko was curious, by the continuing pattern of mischief at the future site of Mother Paula's All-American Pancake House. He had a hunch that the culprit, or culprits, intended something more serious than juvenile pranks. Since the police chief was getting pressure to stop the incidents, the chief, so Officer Delinco's boss, is getting pressure. Officer Delinco knew that catching the vandals would be a feather in his cap. Okay, I'm getting the sense that that does not mean what it says it means. Obviously, who cares if you have a feather in your hat? That's not what he's looking for. So let's figure out what that expression means. It says, Officer Delinco knew that catching the vandals, catching the criminals, the people doing the vandalizing, would be a feather in his cap and possibly the first step toward a promotion. Okay, so a feather in your cap is kind of like something else to add to the list of things that you have done, okay? To show off that you are good at something. A feather in your cap. We should look at the history of that saying, but that's definitely a figure of speech, an idiom, an expression. And the first step toward a promotion, which means he'd get promoted into a better job title. He might get a raise and a slightly better position with the police force. His long-term career goal was to become a detective, and the Mother Paula case was a chance to show he had the right stuff. It's funny to think about what's driving Officer Delinco. I mean, he does want to catch criminals, but he also wants to just kind of move up the ladder in his career. On the first Monday after the alligator episode, Officer Delinco set his alarm clock for 5 a.m. He rolled out of bed, took a quick shower, toasted himself a bagel, and headed out for the construction site. It was still dark when he arrived. 3 times he circled the block and saw nothing unusual. Except for a garbage truck, the streets were empty. The police radio was quiet as well. Not much happened in Coconut Cove before dawn. Or after dawn, for that matter, Officer Delinco mused. He parked the squad car next to Leroy Brannett's work trailer and waited for the sun to rise. It promised to be a pretty morning. The sky looked clear with a rim of pink to the east. Officer Delinco wished he'd brought a thermos of coffee. He wasn't accustomed to getting up so early. Once he caught himself sagging behind the steering wheel, so he slapped briskly at his cheeks in order to stay awake. Peering through the fuzzy early morning gray, Officer Delinco thought he saw movement in the open field ahead of him. He flicked on the squad car's headlights, and there, on a grassy mound marked by a freshly planted survey stake, stood a pair of burrowing owls. Curly hadn't been kidding. These were the dinkiest owls that Officer Delinco had ever seen, only 8 or 9 inches tall. They were dark brown, with spotted wings, whitish throats, and piercing amber eyes. Officer Delinco wasn't a bird watcher, but he was intrigued by the toy-sized owls. For several moments they stared at the car, their big eyes blinking uncertainly, and then they took off, chattering to each other as they swooped low over the scrub. Hoping he hadn't scared the birds away from their nests, Officer Delinco turned off his headlights. He rubbed his heavy eyelids and propped his head against the inside of the car window. The glass felt cool against his skin. A mosquito buzzed around his nose, but he was too sleepy to swipe at it. Okay, I was going to wait for some of our construction noise to die down. But you can tell already that Officer Delinco is getting pretty tired. Soon he nodded off, and the next thing he heard was the radio crackle of the dispatcher's voice, routinely asking for his location. Officer Delinco fumbled for the microphone and then recited the address of the construction site. 10-4, the dispatcher said, signing off. This is like on his walkie, right, or whatever they use in their patrol cars. Officer Delinco gradually roused himself. The squad car was hot, but oddly, it looked darker outside now than when he'd first arrived. So dark, in fact, that he couldn't see anything, not even the construction trailer. What's going on? In a fleeting moment of dread, Officer Delinco wondered if it was already the next night. Was it possible he'd accidentally slept through the entire day? Just then, something smacked against the squad car. Pow! And then came another smack, and another after that. a steady, invisible pounding. Officer Delinko grabbed for his gun, but it wouldn't come out of his holster. The seatbelt was in the way. As he struggled to unstrap himself, the car door flew open and a white blast of sunlight hit him in the face. He shielded his eyes and, remembering what they'd taught him at the academy, shouted, "Police officer! Police officer!" Yeah, could have fooled me. It was Curly, the sullen construction foreman. "What's the matter? Didn't you hear me knocking?" Remember that word sullen came up this morning in Operation Redwood, too, because Julian was behaving sullenly. And now Curly is sullen. It means grouchy. Officer Delinko tried to gather his senses. "I guess I fell asleep. Did something happen?" Curly sighed. "Come out and see for yourself." The patrolman emerged into the glaring sunlight. Daylight. "Oh, no," he muttered. "Oh, yeah," Curly said. While Officer Delinko had been dozing, somebody had sprayed all the windows of his squad car with black paint. "What time is it?" he asked Curly. 9:30. Officer Delinko let out an involuntary whimper. 9:30. He touched his finger to the windshield. The paint was dry. "My car," he said despondently. "Your car?" Curly bent down and scooped up an armful of dug-out survey stakes. "Who cares about your stupid car?" he said. "Well, the police department is going to care about his car. That's a serious thing. It's pretty funny, though, to spray paint his windows black so that then he doesn't wake up. But also, a lot of, that's going to cost some damage, or that's going to cost some money to fix. Also, I keep thinking about Officer Delinko and how badly he wants a promotion, how much he wants people to see the good work that he's doing. He wants to become a detective someday. I don't feel like this is going to help his cause at work. Anyway, you guys are going to go ahead just like normal, and you're going to finish this chapter. It's going to scoot back over to Roy's life for the remainder of the chapter. And I want you to think before you get started about what you would do if you were Roy. He's got Dana, who obviously still hates him, wasn't at school, but clearly everybody is talking about him because nobody's ever stood up to Dana like that before. But then he also has this Beatrice Leap character who seems kind of mad at him as well. And, he's super anxious about it. He probably doesn't want that to go on. He wants to take care of it. So think to yourself how you would take care of it if you were Roy. And then go ahead and keep reading and find out what Roy does to try to solve this problem with Beatrice Leap and also with Dana. I'm pretty sure he had to write an apology letter, right? I think that was in the last chapter that he wrote this very short, kind of snarky, a little bit snarky apology letter, but he hasn't given it to Dana yet. So go ahead and finish the chapter and then do your comprehension stuff, and then I will see you guys on Monday. All right, if I can get Finn in here, I'll add a little bit of Finn to this, but otherwise you may have to tune in later and see him. All right, see you guys. Have a good long weekend. I'll see you Tuesday. Bye.